Hey everybody, it's Colonel here again, Steve Ritter, Phil Stokes' son. Just checking in today with just some couple stories, funny stories today of my trip to Africa in 1999. Just share some of that. I had, with all the kerfuffle going on right now and the way things are, I figured you could use a little levity. I got some funny stories. Yeah, and just the way things, everybody's hunkered down now. Just reminded me of one time in particular on that Africa trip that I want to share that with you. Quick little update. I've been calling around. I have a couple of projects that I've got working now. I haven't forgotten about the cookbook. A lot of you have asked about. I am looking into that, and I'm also looking into. And I've done a lot of research on the prints for the pictures. Mom has about 10 or 12 pictures that I got from the house. I have in the other room. I have a friend of mine that's a professional photographer. I'm going to take some digital pictures of that. I'm also talking with somebody about getting some prints made, and then figuring out the venue for that. Probably will be on Etsy or something like that, where you could order them and all. So just keep your ear to the rail on that one. I'll have more on for that and update as more information comes in. But I am working that stuff. Dog's doing fine. I talked with neighbor Chris the other day. He had stopped by to visit him. I also talked with the people I gave the dogs to. They're doing fine and spoiled rotten, as if they weren't already. So, but anyway, but they are loved and well taken care of and doing fine. So, hunkering down. I haven't started on that. I felt like I was on the Ritter zombie apocalypse diet yesterday. My wife's been getting on to me about eating up some of the canned food that we have. So here was my lunch yesterday. I had a can of beets that I chopped up and I mixed with some mayonnaise, beet salad, and then I had some water chestnuts that I put in there. That was my lunch. And then I had a mango that my wife wanted me to eat before it went bad, and some pistachios. So that was my lunch yesterday. I'm still here. Didn't poison myself. No scurvy. So anyway, but I was thinking about the other day, and one of the things I wanted to talk about. I went on a trip in 1999. I was a pilot stationed here, in Charleston, at Charleston Air Force Base. C-17 pilot's what I did. I was a newly minted instructor pilot, and I'd just come back from instructor school, and I was tagged for a trip. And there was, some trips are better than others. Some places I'd been plenty, lots of trips to Germany. Any place you go that you've been scores of times, it just gets old. And sometimes you look forward to new things. There were plenty of places that I went and I'm like, yeah, I never want to go back there again. But we always wanted the cool trips, to go to cool places. And one of the ones, they had a particular mission that they did that was supported all the state departments around the world, all the embassies. And these particular missions, there were some that would go to the stands, we called it, some in Europe. That was the golden apple there, the Europe ones, all the European countries. Although their logistics was pretty good, so that was the unicorn of those trips. You never saw them. So, but the idea was that you fly in things like furniture and things like that you don't want to go through the normal logistics chain to support the embassies. So that was the idea. So we flew a lot of that. We had a big crew. I got picked for that trip, and this particular one was going to Africa. And we started a week before and doing all the planning, and we got the itinerary for the trip and all the places we were going. And I mentioned that on my the Apocalypse Diet video. I talked about that with the bot flies, which some of you have pointed out that's what those were, the ones that burrow in your skin from your pool towel, wet towels. That's where I learned about that and all the particularly nasty things in Africa. So we did all the research, all the stops we were going to go, and it basically was going to go all the way around Africa, this particular mission, and it was going to take 2 weeks, and all the different stops and everything. It was real cool stops, and we're going to get to spend the night, obviously, in Africa. And So I'm thinking, well, this is going to be great. So there was three of us instructor pilots. I think we had two loadmasters, and then we had another. I think we had another 12 people or something. It was a big crew, and we left. And the first stop, of course, was Germany, and we stopped in Frankfurt and spent the night there. Excuse me, and then coughed in my hand. That's what I should have done. Sorry. So I'm gonna wash my hands right after this. So we and that's pollen, because pollen's pretty bad out here. So I just got back from a bike ride and pollen all over me. Anyway, Frankfurt, we said, so the first real stop, we flew from Germany down to Egypt, and that was a full day trip. So we get down to Egypt. Actually, that was a fairly short day. That took us probably 5 or 6 hours to fly down from Germany to Egypt. And I'm because you think about that, you look at the days and where we're going, and it was, I'll get more on that later. But we spent the night in Egypt in a real nice hotel, and just so we had this big crew, and that's our first night there. And hey, we're gonna we got something to eat. And we want to go shopping. So that was really off the beaten path. Nobody really ever went to Egypt at that time, and so we wanted to go do some shopping. And so we call a couple of cabs, and it was like 2 cabs full of people. And we were driving to the souks, to the shopping places, and of course we start going, and we're just late 20s, early 30s, a lot of us, and some were younger, and so I'd lean over and tell my cab driver, I'm like, see that your buddy there, the other cab driver, I said, we want to beat them to where we're going. So the 2 cab drivers were like racing each other. They're leaning out the window, hollering at each other and everything else, driving through these crazy streets of Egypt. And this became the thing for the whole trip. Our aircraft commander, who was supposed to be kind of like dad, just the whole time he's just going, oh, because he's responsible for everybody. And he was just afraid that we were going to get in a horrible accident and everybody's going to die. So remember that, because that was the thing for the whole trip. So I guess that would have probably made me the crazy younger son who just didn't care, and we'll come back to that. So we went down, and of course, if you've ever done any shopping in the Middle East or anything else, we get there and we go to a place and we're like, this looks nice, and we go, oh yes, I have some other place, and he's going to take us to another place, which is probably his brother-in-law or his cousin or his friend or his brother or whatever that owns another shop, and that's what they all do. They take people to each other's shops and everything else, and you have some tea and you sit down and you buy some things. And I ended up buying I bought a little gold scarab, a little beetle that I bought, and I held on to that thing for years and years, just and I was saving it for I told my wife when I got home, and she says, what in the world is this? And I said, well, that's for my daughter one day. And this was in 1999. This was Benjamin was on the way, and that time, and I didn't have a daughter, so I was planning for the future. So great time. Took off out of Egypt, and we flew south. And the plan was to go from Egypt. We were supposed to stop in Ethiopia or Eritrea, I think, and that stop got canceled. So we overflew Egypt and went to Djibouti for fuel, and that was about a 5-hour flight from Egypt to there. And Djibouti, that was just for fuel, thank God, because Djibouti, there's not a whole lot to see there. There's a reason why it's not called Janice. It's called Djibouti. So we stopped for fuel there, turned around and left. And that was I believe that was an old French colony. I think the French had worked their way that far up, because there was a bit of a French influence there, I remember. Because there was a female that took our flight plan. We had to go into the ops and file a flight plan. And I remember she had a paler complexion, kind of like chocolate, like mocha skin, and she had these gray eyes. It was just, I still remember them. And anyway, so we left Djibouti, and the next stop farther south. And I want to say we went to Kenya. That was the next stop. So we flew all the way down. That was a full day, and we landed in Nairobi, Kenya, and spent the night there. And I loved Kenya. Kenya was just beautiful, and that was really where we talk about weather and everything else, and I know there may be some people all over the world watching this, and let me know, by the way, in the comments if you don't mind. I've heard people from Australia and from Africa. I've heard some people as well, but Kenya, I loved Kenya. Was a beautiful country. But it's really interesting that the closer you get to the equator, the less crazy the weather gets, which I thought was really, I'd never really seen that before. But it's true, and really nice mild weather there. It was really beautiful there, and we got up that next day. We turned right around and had to go back out, but we were going to stay in that hotel where we stayed, and because we're going to fly out, do an out and back is what we call it. So you fly out, do your business, and come back. And we were going to go from there, from Kenya. We were going to fly up to Rwanda, just for a quick stop, and we flew into and landed in Rwanda, offloaded our cargo, turned around, came right back, and we broke, and we had a malfunction in the plane, so the maintenance guys that were carried would have to call in back home, and I troubleshoot the problem and go, okay, this is wrong, we need this part, and they would have to source the part back home in Charleston, and then they would get a guy, would take the part, fly commercially all the way down to where we were, bring us the part, and then they would fix the plane there. And so it would take a couple of days to get somebody out there, which it did. So in the meantime, we got to sit around and went out on a safari. So we called this place and they're like, yeah, we'll send a safari around, and the van came, and there was like 4 or 5 of us that wanted to go, and so we drive, and I'm thinking we're going to be driving 8 hours out or whatever. It was like half hour outside the city. We pull in, and there was this giant, they had these like 20-foot tall fences around, and we drive into this thing, and they're like, you're in the game preserve now. And we drove around inside there and drove right up on lions, and they had this van, little van that we had that they flip these latches, and you could lift the roof up about that far up, so you could kind of look out. Probably enough room for the lion to reach in and grab you, pull you. Well, no, probably not, but maybe. But and we would drive right up, and lions laying there. And lions are pretty lazy. I don't know if you ever knew that, but we did see this one big male lion, and he was checking out some zebras that were just walking around, and we thought we were going to get a good show, but nothing happened. Saw some cool stuff there driving around, and we drive around the back side of this preserve. It was probably a couple of miles wide. We get on the back side, it was along a river, and then on the other side of the river, they're like, yeah, that's the back side of the park, and there was like a line of cinder blocks, just one cinder block deep. That was it. And then there was like somebody's house over there, and I'm like, so those say, yeah, they could walk right over there, yeah, and people living in it. I mean, that's crazy. But got back to the hotel, and then the next day we had one more day there. They told us, you guys need to hunker down today. Don't go outside. And we're like, what's going on there? So, well, there's some protest. So that was what reminded me of what's going on now, because we, nothing's worse than being told you can't do something, because that just makes you want to do it, right? So we're just like, oh man, so we're just hanging out by the pool playing cards and all the other things our crew do, and then often we're kind of playing, and we hear this bang, and off in the distance we hear like, well, there was like protest, and the riot police came in, and we're tear gas bombs going off and everything else, and we're kind of going, hey, are we, the embassy called us, and they're like, you guys just stay there, don't go anywhere, everything's fine, they'll sort this out, and they did. But I can remember there was a big open park behind the hotel too, and up where we stayed, the rooms, you could look out and see people, and it looked like just people taking naps everywhere, and they're like, well, no, those guys were chewing cot, is what this called. I think it's Qaat, cot. It's a it's like a drug you chew or something like that, and it would just it was a, I don't know if it's a hallucinogenic or it's a drug, and then they would chew it up, and it just then they'd sleep it off out there in the park or whatever. So got to do a little bit of shopping in Kenya, just a little bit, and then we left, and then we flew south, and we went to South Africa, and that took a 7-hour flight, landed, gas, another 7 hours to get to South Africa. I mean, Africa is huge. You never really realize. I mean, it takes 5 hours to fly from one side of the U.S. to from the East Coast to the West Coast, 5 hours. And Africa, I mean, it was in the middle of Africa where Kenya is. It was that far down, all the way down to South Africa. It was like 12 hours or something crazy like that. We get to South Africa down there, and we broke again. So that time we ended up spending about a week down there waiting for a part to get in because they sent the wrong part and all that. So we had the embassy set us up with our own driver. Johan was his name. And so that was a score, because he would come by, and we'd be having breakfast, and we'd kind of get a group together, and he'd go, all right, what do you want to do today? And we're like, well, let's go shopping. And we'd go down to the local market, and we'd buy, whatever drums or carved things or all kind of little things like that you could buy. And we'd say, hey, how much? And he'd go, oh, that's, whatever. And yeah, that's a good price. And so that was nice having a local right there. He came in one day and said, what do y'all want to do? And I was like, well, hey, what about go-karts? You got any go? And they're like, yeah, there's go-kart tracks. So there's me again, stirring trouble up. And, the aircraft commander is just like, oh, I don't know. We're like, oh, it'll be fine. So we get there, and they give us these jumpsuits, and we get in these go-karts, and these things, they aren't like go-karts in the U.S. I mean, they had no governors on them, and they were not safe. I'll be the first to admit that. I mean, it was like full on, and there's no seatbelts, and you get in these things going flat out, and then we're driving around the track, and I mean, of course, they were fun, but we're come around one corner, and you kind of it banks up, and you kind of get up to the top, and the bank, and you kind of look over the side, and there were like pieces of rebar sticking up on the other side, like Viet Cong punji sticks or something sticking up there. I mean, all you had to do was go over the side, and you'd like been impaled, been like a Steve Popsicle, sticking on this thing. So a couple of times, somebody catch your tire just right, and guys would get spilled out. So we gave our aircraft commander a tough time, because he was like a nervous wreck the whole time. While we were doing all that, but we had a blast there. Good steaks down there. I remember that was the first time I really watched cricket, and we were trying to understand what was going on with that. I remember that, but anyway, that was South Africa. I remember at the hotel we were staying at there one time. There was some excitement one day because Muammar Gaddafi and his retinue were staying at the hotel. Never did see him, but I did see some of his security guys, and so that was some excitement there. We'd always kind of lay low. That was always a big thing. Just a few more minutes. They always trained us that, and flying airlift was to keep a low profile wherever you travel. Just don't try not to stick out. Try not to be the ugly American or whatever whenever you travel. Just be polite and friendly, and just try to dress conservatively and all that, so you don't really stand out. So that was so we always try to do that, and just because we didn't want Muammar to know we were there. So we flew from up that way. We went into we landed at, I remember we went into Angola, and that place, I guess, I don't know, back then they were still in civil war was still going on there. Everything had to be airlifted in. And I remember flying into this airport, and there were airplanes everywhere. We were taxiing in, and we didn't quite have enough room, and guys had to push airplanes out of the way for us to get in. And we were, some of the guys would come on, the embassy guys would bring their friends, and then they would come on wanting to show them the C-17. And I remember talking to one guy, and I'm like, yeah, you guys still got some stuff going on. He goes, yeah. And I said, you guys hiring? Like pilots or whatever. And I'll never forget, the guy stopped real serious, looked at me, and said, yes, are you interested? It's like, oh, whoa, no, I don't know if the wife would want to move there with the kids to Angola, but I'm not sure how it is there now. But then it was kind of sporty, so we got out of there. We were kind of glad we weren't spending the night there, and we flew up to around where Africa kind of hooks around. We went into Ghana, and I remember flying into there in one of the worst thunderstorms I ever seen, and we had to pick our way in and land opposite direction and all, and we got into there and landed, and I mean, just a horrific thunderstorm. And we pile into the van. They take us to the hotel. Get into the hotel, got in my room, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go sit on the balcony, check this out, and I turn all the lights off in my room. I remember going sitting on the balcony and looking out, and it was like looking in a bottle of black ink. It was so dark, and then the lightning would just strike. That's just the contrast in the brightness. And it was like being inside a thunderstorm. I never seen anything like it. Spent the night there, but I got up the next morning, and we were right on the edge of a beach and all. So just beautiful. But talk about blending in. I remember coming out of the hotel that day. We were going to do a quick shopping trip through right outside the hotel, which usually was pretty safe around hotels. That's the one place in the world that I've really felt uncomfortable, because we walked out, and I swear, I mean, it was like a whole street right in front of the hotel full of shops and vendors and all. Every head down that street for probably half a mile turned and looked at us walking out that front door, I swear. And we all kind of were like, and kind of stopped. And of course, you don't want to just, we're like, be cool, guys, be cool. So we kind of got in a huddle, and we're kind of talking a little bit, and we're all still, okay, look at your watch. Okay, no, we don't have time. Okay, go back. We went back inside. That was uncomfortable, because you stick out like a sore thumb. But I remember we flew into Chad, the country Chad, Najima, and we landed there. That was just a quick turn, offload real quick, and then turn around, come right out. I remember we were sitting there waiting, getting some fuel, and I'd stepped outside the airplane for a little bit, and I remember seeing this little kid just outside the fence. There was a gate to open that was closed with these bars, and the kid there, and all he had on was a pair of shorts, and he was about shin deep in trash. And he just was looking at the airplane, just checking it out. I mean, just outside of the airport was just shacks, 10 shacks and stuff. And I remember just seeing this kid, and he was about the age of my son at the time, Nathan. And I walked over to him, and I had a pack of gum, and I gave him some gum, And he was just like, this was like, Christmas morning or something, At first I think he thought I was going to run him off or whatever, but I never forgot that to this day. And we went to Senegal, and this is a funny one. They would tell us there, the guys that had been around Africa flying before said, hey, whatever you do, get some socks. And so I made a point in South Africa stopping in at a mall or whatever, a clothes store, and I bought a pack of 6 white tube socks, athletic socks. It was like $5 for this pack of socks, right? So I'm carrying this thing around everywhere. And finally, we land in Senegal, and we land at the hotel. They're like, yeah, there's a great restaurant about half a mile down here, hang a left. So we walk down the street, big group of us, so it was pretty safe. And come around the corner, we see the restaurant, we're walking up to it, and these about six guys come out of the just nowhere. They beamed in or something, and they had all their wares and they're hawking their goods. And this guy plops this big antelope down in front of me. This carved from a single piece of wood antelope, and he says, here you go. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I said, how much is that? He goes, $300. And I'm like, at this point, we're on the back end of the trip. I had no cash. I had like $60. I'm like, I can't. He goes, oh, well, you give me a price. You give me a price. I'm like, $60. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, oh, well, I said, I carried them all the way since South Africa, and I took out my bag of socks, and I'm like, how about if I put this? How much would it be with this? And he goes, ooh. He goes, $150. He cut the price in half. 6 socks on it. And finally, I worked it down to every bit of cash I had in my wallet. $60 and 6 pair of socks for this antelope, which I've carried around to this day. Still looking for a place in the house. Wife's still its place is in the garage right now, but looking around for it. But now that trip, for the most part, and we came back. There's one story in particular, and this one, if you're eating dinner right now, you might want to come back later and listen to this one or whatever, because this one, it's funny, but it's pretty rough. But we had a loadmaster with us that had a weak stomach, and just anything would set him off, and he would lose his lunch, and so we were over there, and after flying around, you ever pay attention when you fly on a plane or anything else? The bathrooms that they have on the plane, there's a big tank that they store. It's a lavatory that has to be pumped out, and of course, when you got a big crew of 16 and you're flying around for 3 weeks, you have to service it. And we were in this one stop in Africa, and the guy came up, and he's got the pipe in, and we had gone inside to follow our flight plan. The pilots did, so the loadmaster's out there keeping an eye, helping the guy out servicing the latrine. So the one loadmaster's standing there, and he hooks the pipe up, and he's got it on there, and it's chugging out. And he told the story to us later, but as he's standing there, the pipe starts going like that, shaking, and the African guy helping him dives out of the way, and the loadmaster's like, what's it? And it pops, and it just covers him head to toe in blue latrine, stuff, and oh man. So he's like, oh my gosh. So he walks around. The other loadmaster was inside the airplane, so we all had our clothes and everything else. So he's like, look, I'm gonna get my shampoo. I'm gonna get some clothes. We carried jugs of water. He said, I'm gonna just clean myself off on the wing here, put my bathing suit on, and clean myself up, because he was covered head to toe. So the loadmaster inside the airplane's the one with a weak stomach. So he calls him, hey, and so the guy comes out, looks out, gets one look at him, and he's like, oh, I can't. Oh, and he goes, hey, no, just don't look at me, because he was about to throw. He goes, just go in my bag, get my swimsuit and whatever. And he's, oh, okay. So he goes and he finds his bag, and he's looking through it, and it's taking a while. Of course, the other loadmaster's down there, and he's covered from head to toe, and he's got chunks of toilet paper on him and all. It's just nasty. And he's going, oh, what's taking him so? Finally, he's like, I can't wait. And he walks up the stairs, gets on the airplane, sees him. He's still rooting around in his bag. He's got his back to him. Comes up, taps him on the shoulder. The weak stomach loadmaster turns around and sees him, and then just loses it, because he's got like this big on his shoulder, and he loses his lunch in the guy's bag too. So it was just a double whammy. It was horrible. But so that explained why when we came out to the airplane, this loadmaster is standing under the wing in his bathing suit, nothing, just his bathing suit on. He's got a blue tinge to him, and he's dumping jugs of water and is washing his hair. We're going, there must be some story to this, and there was, and it was a doozy. So anyway, that's some stories I got from Africa. Good memories. That was a good trip. That was a long trip, and I get home, and that was the cool missions that from my time in the Air Force. So anyway, I hope you liked a little diversion, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll have some more updates for you as the time goes on the pictures and the prints and all that, and we'll have some more recipes and stuff for you later. So anyway, if you're watching this from Africa or anything else, or leave a comment from those of you all over the world. I love reading those. It's pretty cool. So anyway, take care. It's good seeing you again. It's Colonel signing off. Over and out.